So today I have a few stories to tell. There is a plane flying over my house and it's been flying for a while. I think it's about time you leave. Today we're doing a mini tea. We have a lot of stories to get through. Instagram, Twitter, follow me on there. It's a very fun time, if I can say so myself. Also, second channel, we're on like 110k. So if you want to obviously join in with that, then join in with that. Go subscribe. I don't know why I'm being so awkward right now. All the links in the description for anything that you might need to find or anything that I mentioned in my video. So let's get into it. So I recently spoke about Charli D'Amelio and the amount of hate that she's been receiving from teenagers and grown people alike. One of them being Paris Hilton, where he basically said that the song that she was dancing to and the way she was dancing to it was inappropriate on one of her TikToks, when it's literally just a trend on TikTok. And I said I don't know why a grown man would be so concerned with what a 16-year-old is doing when it's not dangerous. But then for some odd reason, someone, I'm not gonna mention who, but a few smaller channels thought it was a good idea to then spread false information about me, while also accusing me of spreading false information because I allegedly, in my video, accused Paris Hilton of being a pedo. Apparently I did that. It's really funny because I don't remember doing that, so I'll just insert the clip here of me saying that he's actually not a pedo in the exact video that they're accusing me of calling him a pedo. So someone then tweeted out saying Paris Hilton literally shamed Charli D'Amelio for wearing a bathing suit. Charli was literally at the beach. His excuse for this behavior was that he's gay, but no matter who you are, attempting to diss a minor for what they're wearing is not right. I'm not sure how being gay changes anything here. You're still an adult talking about a child and what they're wearing. It's nothing to do with sexuality or like you know, whatever, being attracted to her or something. We're not saying that. We're just saying an adult shouldn't be talking about what a child is wearing publicly, unless it's like dangerous. I love when it's like verbatim I said, I'm not calling him a pedo. And somehow that became a story of Angelika is accusing Paris Hilton of being a pedo. I swear people just make up the most bullshit I've ever seen. Where was I going with this? Charli receiving hate from people like Paris Hilton, who then dug up information on her dad and his DUI. It was just a whole mess. How did we go from she is dancing to an inappropriate song inappropriately to her dad had a DUI in 2015? Like, how did those two somehow connect in his brain? I'm not sure. Anyway, so recently she uploaded a TikTok that she has now apparently taken down, which was her playing a sound that goes, "I'm just a kid," and showing all the hate comments she gets, which were like, oh, you know, she's too skinny, she's too fat, you can see her rib cage, why are her thighs so big, why is her belly like that? And it's just what I mean when it's like, how is that something you'd be saying about a 16-year-old, like someone who just turned 16? How is that appropriate? I recently also watched Jojo Siwa's interview with Logan Paul on his podcast, and she said this at the time of the interview, a 15-and-a-half-year-old, she really emphasized the half there, I'm gonna give it to her, 15-and-a-half. I love Jojo Siwa, I really do, I stand so hard. But she said that she, on Halloween, went to do this like a scary festival thing. Like, you know those ones where like people jump out and scare you and stuff like that. And people in person shouted her name and then swore at her or like shouted insults at her about her looks and just telling her to off. I was like, a 15-year-old left her house to have fun and was shouted at by probably people her age or older. How is any of this okay? There was another TikTok that she posted, which was, there'll be people that say, oh, you're too skinny, I can see your rib cage, and then another person will be like, under the same TikTok, oh, you're too fat, I can see your like big thighs or something. And then she put the sound over it that's like, it's the remix. And I thought that was pretty funny, but I know that she is taking it to heart. There is this fine line between just making sure that you hold people accountable and then just being a bully and just harassing people. Recently, people have been sending me this Jeffree Star expose by someone called Liam McAvoy. So they made a video basically just going over all the stuff that they found. So the first thing is the lipstick thing. Before Jeffree Star Cosmetics, there was Lipstick Nazi, where the promo picture for it was Jeffree Star with, you know, with very graphic imagery and obviously the aesthetics. Then there was talks about the Manny MUA Laura Lee situation, which I've spoken about. How can Jeffree Star, someone who has said the N-word before with a hard R, has said that he wanted to pour battery acid on a black woman, called black women gorillas just like 3 years ago, like this wasn't ages ago, and said many disrespectful and not even borderline, just full-on racist things. How can someone like that cancel Manny MUA for hurting his feelings and Laura Lee for making stereotypical racial jokes without being cancelled himself? There is a lack of self-awareness there with Jeffree Star that I am now noticing. How can you feel so brave? I think it's because he knows he has a cult following that will agree with anything he says, but you can't be openly racist and then try to cancel people for being less racist than you. He's never suffered the consequences of his actions, but yet everyone else has. It's insane to me. And then he also talks about how he was on a previous website that he kind of took over, just kind of like YouTube, and he spoke about how he manipulated everyone on that website to basically just believe everything he says. Isn't that kind of reminiscent of what he's doing on YouTube now, manipulating everyone to believe his lies and bullshit and believe every single word that he spews about other people? Then Liam mentions Davi and all the lies regarding that, but we've already been over all of that. You know, Liam basically speaks about the Mum's Basement podcast, the Chris Hansen interview. So it just goes to show there's more lies, more deception, more manipulation. From Jeffree Star to Davi to all the victims, Jeffree Star has the most to lose in the situation. A multi-million-dollar company, a channel that brings in millions of dollars a year, and fans that will eat up his bullshit. He has the most to lose, and that's why he is now going back on every single thing he said. Because back then he didn't have as much to lose, but now, well, it's a little bit of a different story. I'm tangled up in my own cable, hold on. And then the last thing was a very good point that Liam made, which is how Jeffree deals with criticism or hate or anything that he, you know, whatever he wants to call it. He attacks people. He tries to scare them into not speaking. He did that with James Charles. He's doing that now with Tati a little bit, where he's, you know, attacking her decisions that she made during By Sister. He attacked Nikki Tutorials indirectly, from what I remember, allegedly. Remember when he made that Snapchat story where he's like, no one speaks out about me because I have tea on all of them. I have receipts on all of them. And it seemed like he was talking about Nikki Tutorials because that kind of all added up to people. I'm not saying it's true, but I'm saying, you know, he himself has said he has tea and receipts on people, which is why no one speaks out about him from the industry, because he has receipts on everyone. Attack. It's an attack and scare tactic that he uses to shut people up before they even have a chance to utter a word. Anyway, then he goes into invalidating people. When they do speak out, he will then make them seem like they have something to gain from this. What does he do to drama channels when they don't agree with him? Invalidates them. What was it that he said in the Mum's Basement interview? That all drama channels that are speaking about the situation are only doing it for money, when I know for a fact that most of those drama channels have those videos either with ads just completely taken off or demonetized. But Jeffree Star did an interview with Chris Hansen, who was getting hundreds of dollars in donations, and yet there was no say on where that money was going. So yeah, he just invalidates people, tries to make it seem like they have something to gain from attacking him. You know, every time we bring up his past that he still hasn't technically apologized for, he'll be like, well, you know, I'm so over it. People that dig up other people's pasts are so like, it's whatever. It's just invalidating people and their motivation, you know? Anyway, and then he'll mitigate whatever you accuse him of. He'll say it's not a big deal. It doesn't matter. That's just how people behaved 10 years ago. That was, you know, people don't realize what the rock scene was like 10 years ago. Oh, you know, everyone was just a criminal back in the day and everyone was friends with criminals. Like if you weren't a criminal, you were friends with a criminal. That's not how it works, Jeffree. You don't just say that and think you're gonna get away with it. And that was basically the whole video. I thought it was super well done. I'll put it in the description just so you guys can watch it and get more, you know, first-hand info. The next story for today is Olivia Jade. Olivia Jade, if you don't know, has been the daughter of Lori Loughlin. She is the daughter of Lori Loughlin and Massimo Giannulli, who are the two parents involved in the college admissions scandal. And they have now pled guilty. So both Lori Loughlin and Massimo Giannulli have pled guilty to conspiracy to commit wire and mail fraud, for which she's getting 2 months prison time, 150k fine, and 250 hours of community service. And Massimo Giannulli pled guilty to the same thing, plus honest services wire and mail fraud, for which he's getting 5 months in prison, 250k fine, and also 250 hours of community service. But what I heard was that, for example, another parent that was involved in this was Felicity Huffman, and she pretty much from the get-go pled guilty, and she only got 11 days in prison. There is this article where I got all this information from on BBC News, which is Lori Loughlin, US actress to plead guilty in college cheating scandal on the 21st of May 2020. And in the last paragraph, it says, prosecutors in Massachusetts had publicly warned Miss Loughlin that the longer her case dragged on, the longer her sentence would be if she was eventually found guilty at trial rather than plead guilty. If she's convicted, I don't think I'm giving her any state secrets by saying we would probably ask for a higher sentence for her than we did for Felicity Huffman. Mr. Lelling told WCVB-TV in Boston in October. The development comes only 2 weeks after the couple again moved to have the case dismissed. So essentially, Felicity Huffman only got 11 days because from the get-go she pled guilty and was remorseful. That's kind of how it works. So she basically ended up getting a plea deal because she pled guilty. Now, that's exactly what Lori Loughlin and Massimo Giannulli are doing, except they're doing it months later, which is why they're both getting 2 months and 5 months. Much bigger fines, because if they had just pled guilty from the get-go, the plea deal would be better, but you know, this is still a good outcome for them, because I'm pretty sure when we were talking about this a few weeks ago or a few months ago, it was being said that Lori Loughlin was facing 40 years for money laundering, fraud, tax fraud, and just all kinds of fraud. So she was facing 40 years. So to get 2 months is nothing compared to what she was going to get. And the last piece of tea for today is the Call Her Daddy drama. So Call Her Daddy is a podcast which is owned by Barstool. It is run by Sofia and Alex. They're basically two girls who thought of Call Her Daddy and bought it to Barstool, and they signed a contract for, I believe, for both of them to earn 70k plus bonuses for downloads, some from merch, I believe, like anything they would sell to do with Call Her Daddy, and Barstool would actually own the IP for Call Her Daddy, so if they ever left Barstool, they wouldn't be able to take Call Her Daddy with them. They stopped uploading episodes towards the beginning of April, and people were wondering, you know, what's up, why aren't they uploading stuff? And then they would have like weird cryptic messages on either the Call Her Daddy Instagrams or their own Instagrams, where they were like, we'll talk about everything when we're allowed to. Right now we're legally not allowed to speak on anything. So people were starting to get a little bit worried about their, you know, fathers, which is what they're called apparently. And then turns out that there were some problems with the contracts because they wanted to get out of the contract, and then Barstool was basically saying, no, you've agreed to this contract, so you're going to stay in it. And people started siding with Sofia and Alex for a little bit, and then the boss of Barstool basically filmed an expose essentially. He filmed an episode for the podcast and he posted it on the original Call Her Daddy podcast page. So it went straight to their fans, which is probably like the biggest like way to expose someone, is to hit directly where their fans are. And he basically made a 30-minute podcast, which I listened to, where he went over how all of this happened. So he basically said that they signed a contract for 70k, but with all the bonuses for downloads, because they didn't realize how big Call Her Daddy would be. Call Her Daddy actually ended up being the #1 podcast in America. With all the download bonuses, Sofia made just under 500k in 2019, and Alex made just over 500k because she actually went in to get a raise because she was the one that edited the podcast, but she went and did that behind Sofia's back, which I know Sofia felt betrayed by because she just found this out and she feels super betrayed by it. But then again, Alex did more work, so I think she should have been paid more considering she's like the main person editing everything and doing all that stuff. But they were being paid roughly the same amount, as around 500k a year. And people are saying that it's a bit like weird because every episode they would complain about how broke they are to sound relatable, but then we're finding out that they're making 500k a year. Anyway, he then goes on to say that Sofia just found a new boyfriend he does something to do with HBO, and he basically told her to start looking for a new place to move Call Her Daddy to. And he was the one that was like pushing this idea that she needs to be paid more and that she's not getting paid enough. And he was basically pushing all these ideas in her head that she needed to go fishing for a different contract. And Alex kind of went along with it, so they start negotiating with Barstool when they find out. And Barstool then actually, they have their last like meeting where they offered them $1 million contract, right? They had 18 months left of the 3-year contract that they signed with Barstool, and the boss of Barstool basically said, we'll cut off 6 months of that contract, so you have 1 year left, plus we'll bump up your merch and sales royalties to 7.5%, and then you have to stay for a year, and then you will get the IP of Call Her Daddy at the end of the year, and you can take it wherever you want. That would have been an incredible deal. And Sofia said no, and Alex obviously went along with it because without Sofia there isn't Call Her Daddy. It's an Alex and Sofia show. But Alex then came back and said that she was willing to take that deal without Sofia. I don't think Sofia will come back because she did post an Instagram story where she was like, she just feels a little betrayed because Alex went behind her back twice to get a deal done without her. The first time was to get a raise in the first year, and the second time was because she came back and she was like, I want the deal. If Sofia doesn't want it, I'll take it myself. So I don't think Sofia wants to come back, and without Sofia there's no Call Her Daddy. So I'm just not sure what will happen here. And the best part is, what people are now saying is, Sofia and Alex made Call Her Daddy to empower women and make them feel like they are in control of their relationships, and essentially just basically say like, don't let a man get in between your goals, ambitions, friendships, you know, always like move ahead, whether it's with a man or without a man. They would speak about very freely and, you know, just all that stuff. Now it's funny because this whole thing broke apart because Sofia found herself a boyfriend that basically started putting weird ideas in her head, and now she's missed out. I don't think Call Her Daddy will be a thing anymore. Well, I was wrong. What in fact had happened was I filmed a video on Friday and I get around to Saturday and I see on my homepage, like straight up on my homepage, YouTube just shouted at me saying, don't upload this video, there's more info. Alex from Call Her Daddy had actually uploaded a video, the same video, on her personal vlog channel as well as the Call Her Daddy YouTube channel, where she explains the whole situation from start to finish. I will link the video in description because I think it's super interesting, and she's so concise and like straight to the point, but also like doesn't skip out on any details. I thought it was such a well done video for like the lack of editing. I could never, because the amount of times I and yeah, too annoying. You can tell she's good for the podcast scene, and I'll definitely listen to the podcast from now on. I never really listened to it before now, but I don't see why I wouldn't now. I'm gonna do a slight breakdown of the video because I think it's super important for the story, but yes, do go watch her video. I think it's super well done. So she said that, so Alex starts off the video just talking about how she was basically unemployed doing her vlog channel, and she comes up with Sofia with the idea of having a podcast because someone brings up the idea to her, and they film 4 episodes that they bring to Dave from Barstool, Dave being the boss that I keep on referring to, because she kind of knew who Dave was. They kind of knew who she was. It was kind of like a, you know, like a New York, everyone kind of knew each other in the social scene kind of a thing. And he loves the idea. He speaks to Alex about it and he's like, I love the idea. She's like, well, I have a partner. Her name's Sofia. I think this could really work. And he's like, I can't wait to meet her. So they sent a deal for 3 years. The first one being for $75,000 plus bonuses, then $85,000, then $100,000 plus bonuses, all of those. What people don't realize is obviously 75,000 isn't a lot, like I mentioned kind of before this update, but for the fact that he didn't know how this was gonna go, it's a lot of money, you know? Like just in general, 75,000 a year is a lot of money for someone who was basically unemployed before they got into the podcast scene. Who would have guessed that the podcast was going to be as big as it was going to be? And kind of what hurts me now is I looked more into podcasts. I listen to a few podcasts here and there, but I'm not like that much of an expert in podcasts. But in 2019, I went and looked up obviously the screenshot I showed you guys of them being the #1 podcast in America in 2019. And the second podcast right after them was the Joe Rogan podcast. I thought Joe Rogan was like the top podcast, and he just sold his show to Spotify for 100 million. If Sofia had just waited that extra year, they could have sold their podcast to like Spotify or Apple. Oh my God, it blows my mind how much she fumbled the bag. Apparently what happened was during one of the Christmas parties, like the Christmas party after they got signed, Alex actually asked for a raise because she was doing most of the work. So they plan and film the show for about, 3 to 5 hours. And then Alex actually goes and edits the show herself for, she says, 7 to 20 hours, which is basically just an extra job on top of the job that she's already doing with Sofia. And she basically went and asked for a raise. And that's why at the end of the year, Sofia made just below 500k and Alex made just over 500k, because that was the difference there. Because other than that, they made the exact same amount of money. And apparently Sofia was angry publicly about her basically not working enough, if that makes sense. So when people ask oh, who edits this show? It's really good. Sofia would say, oh, both of us, when it was clearly always Alex. And she never really liked it when publicly people complimented Alex's work because she knew that she wasn't pulling her weight. But maybe instead of complaining about Alex getting all the praise, you would actually go and do some work. So the end of year 1 comes renegotiation. A lot of people said that they broke contract by trying to renegotiate when Alex said herself that every single year at the end of the year they were allowed to renegotiate. What had happened was Sofia at that point already had a new boyfriend called Peter, and Peter basically told them, you're getting paid not enough. Which is true, which is probably true. That's the thing. It's yes, they were not getting paid enough. And that's what the renegotiation is there for. You go at the end of your year 1 and renegotiate your base salaries and then your bonuses and then all the merch stuff. But it's not like Barstool were going out of their way to screw them over. It was because when they came around, Alex and Sofia were not big names in the industry. They had not done a podcast or a YouTube channel before that was super successful. So he was giving a chance to people who had no experience in the industry, which is why they were given what I think is pretty fair salary for having no experience. 75k, 85k, and 100k, plus bonuses, which is why they both made 500k. And that was a chance for them to say oh, give us 500k plus bonuses. Sofia's boyfriend comes in with this huge terms list of we want this, we want that, we want, $1 million, we want X amount from merch, X amount from the alcohol they're selling, all of that good stuff. Dave said no, because that was outrageous what they were asking for. So negotiations stopped because they were not getting to an agreement. Sofia's boyfriend starts shopping around, seeing where they can take Call Her Daddy, fully well knowing that in the contract, the 3-year contract that Sofia and Alex signed, the IP was handed over to Barstool. If you're not sure what an IP is basically just the rights to everything to do with the podcast. Dave knows that Peter is shopping around for a new deal. He says, hey, let's have a meeting. And apparently now we find out that Sofia went there as a courtesy meeting because she was not going to accept any deal that was given to her. And Alex went there hoping for a good deal, hoping to catch him on a good day and hoping that she can get a good salary from him and that she can, own possibly Call Her Daddy. So he offers them $500k, which I still think as a base salary on your second year of working in a company to make 500k. Are you kidding me? Even let's say I wanted to do law before I dropped out of my law degree. I looked up how much lawyers make for the first few years of their life, and it's in the ranges of 30 to 50k for a few years of your life until you maybe start making 150k, and then after 10 or so years you might end up getting that good 200k, and then some of them will build up to the big salaries that you hear from lawyers, the 700k, but those are the individual, you can't judge a whole industry salary by the few individuals up at the top. Most people will be stuck at 100 150k when they're working in a corporate environment, and at that point you kind of stop going up based on different factors. I watched a lot of shows about this because I'm very interested in the wage gap and stuff. So a good show for that is Explained on Netflix. They do the wage gap show for 20 minutes. It's literally 20-minute episodes and it explains everything about the wage gap. So 500k on your second year in a corporation, at the age of what, 20 something, they're like super young as well. They were going to get alcohol, a much percentage, much percentage will go up. He says he will take off 6 months from the 18 months that they had left and make it a 12-month deal, and he will give them the IP. But Sofia's not excited. So she says this was the most like awkward walk back they could have imagined. So there was the ghost period that Dave then referred to when he was like in the podcast, where he said, you know, they just didn't talk to me. Alex said that was because Sofia kept on negotiating with her lawyers for more terms, more things that she wanted. And Alex at that point was like, I can't call her daddy without Sofia, so I'm going to try and just agree with her, like just to get her to come to Barstool with me. It almost seemed like every time Sofia kind of came up with something that Barstool matched, she would ask for more, and it was almost her sabotaging the show, because she was hoping that if he gets fed up enough, he would just give them the IP and tell them to go away, and then she could go to someone else and get a better deal, which I don't think she would. Basically, the lawyer said that he thinks Sofia and Alex should just talk to each other privately before they start negotiating again, because they don't seem to be on the same page. So they have a 2-hour long phone call where Alex took a lot of notes. And this is why I respect her so much, because she's actually come out with a statement full of evidence, facts, whereas Sofia just went on Instagram Live for a minute and was like, I have so many things to say, and then said nothing. So like, if I'm going to trust someone, it's going to be the person that came out with a 45-minute video with facts. So they have a 2-hour long phone call. There was a lot of conversations. I'm going to just pick out the main bits where Alex said that there was no option for her to leave. She was like, at this point, I think you're looking for a way to leave and I'm looking for a way to stay. So I don't think we're on the same page with that. And Sofia said, yeah, I don't think we're on the same page, because she wants to leave. Then Sofia says that the IP isn't as important as Alex thinks it is. When Alex basically just said, without the IP, we don't have our fan base. Without the IP, we miss out on everything that our fan base loves about us. Throughout this whole 45-minute long video, it seems like Alex is so much more focused on almost like the nostalgia of it all. Like, you know, she doesn't want to leave the fathers behind, the call her daddy, the Gluck Gluck 9000. Like, she doesn't want to leave any of that behind, because it's what makes them close to their fan base. It's like, it's the inside jokes almost that you have with your friends, you know? To Sofia, it's more just, how much can we get out of this deal? How much can we get from being Sofia and Alex? How much money can we make? How much can we push this deal? How much can we get from merch? It was all about money. When it's weird, because Sofia was just not pulling her weight. Like, from what we can see for the last, 2 years, essentially, from working at Barstool, Alex was doing the bulk of the work. And then Sofia says this interesting thing that she also allegedly said to her lawyer, which is, what happens to the IP if one of us leaves or gets fired after we sign this deal? Which to me and Alex and the lawyer sounded like she was going to sign the deal and then get fired or leave. Basically leave Alex with all the work and then come back to pick up the pieces of the IP once it's ready to be given out. Then the New York Post article comes out on this where the contract is leaked. Even Alex said that wasn't the initial contract that he signed, because it didn't have any of the bonuses on it. So it literally just said 75,000, 85, and then 100k, but it didn't have the bonuses on it. So it looked like a very exploitative deal, but they did make 500k. So like, not much of an exploitation there, is it? Alex said that only 5 people had that contract and no one but Sofia would have leaked it. And at that point, Alex realized that Sofia was basically sabotaging the show. What had then happened was Sofia got new agents and a new deal, which was the same as the original deal that Peter drew up for them, which was the outrageous million, like lots of royalties and stuff. And she said that's not going to go through. So Alex decides at that point that she's going to call Dave and tell him that she wants the original rooftop deal. And she's asked him to meet, and she took the deal and she said, look, I have my new agents, I have a new lawyers, and I can't make decisions based on what Sofia and her boyfriend want to do. And I want to take that deal because I want to progress in my career. So she got representation and lawyers to negotiate for herself as an individual, not as a duo anymore. She was negotiating for her as an individual. She said that she lost her friend. We lost a duo. Well, not we, because I didn't watch the show, but like, people lost their duo. She lost a friend. At the end of the video, she says that she's coming back on Wednesday, which means she's coming back on her own, because I don't think Sofia signed the deal. So that's why I said I think I was wrong, because she's coming back. She signed the deal, and Alex seems to be doing on her own. Now, I think she'll do it on her own for a little bit, and she'll either get a new co-host, or I think a pretty good idea would be to get guests on every week, kind of like most podcasts do, like Logan Paul. Some of them, they do it on their own, and then every now and then they'll get a guest in, and it kind of brings in a different perspective, different views and opinions on things, and I think it could spice things up. But Alex, if you're looking for a co-host, I'm available. Sometimes I might not be in New York, but like, I want to get on that 500k deal. Like, I wouldn't complain. That's the video for today. If you enjoyed it, give it a thumbs up, comment down below, anything, comment down below, and subscribe, because I post videos every time something happens. So hit the bell, be notified when that's happening. Social media links in description, and I'll see you in my next one. Bye guys.